All right. I'm still trudging through Corey's new intros. I'll have those edited and whipped into shape this week. He's a good one-take guy, but I got to add all the effects and all that jazz. Are you even listening to me, or are you?
No, I was waiting for us to start, and so I was checking Tinder.
Yeah.
And
you're on Tinder?
I swear to God, yes.
Isn't Tinder like some kind of porn hookup thing? Like...
Hey, you know what? If it's a hookup site, I wish, because you know what? If it's a hookup site, there's one guy not hooking up on Tinder, and you're looking at him. So, okay, this one girl named Tanya.
How does Tinder differ from like Match.com?
Well, Tinder is just an app on your phone.
Right.
Match, although it has an app, is primarily web-based.
Okay.
And so Tinder is all you see. Like here, I'm showing Wade this picture. Here's this woman. Her name is Tanya. She's 38. Now I don't know why she swiped right on me, because she lives 2,550 miles away. She goes to Helsinki Summer University. Why is she texting? Why is she swiping right for me? Anyway, so all you do is swipe right or left. If you swipe right, it means that you like the girl. If you swipe left, that means you don't like the girl. Conversely, if they swipe right and I swiped right, that means we're a match. So Tinder will then allow us to email each other. If one of us swipes right to say yes, but one of us swipes left to say no, we cannot then communicate. You have to both swipe right.
What if you swipe up?
Well, nothing happens. Well, you can read their profile.
What if you swipe down?
You read their profile.
Okay.
Anyway,
what if you swipe both left and right at the same time?
Right, unmatched Tanya. You're 2,550 miles away. Seriously, what the hell, man? Stop that. Anyway, all right. If we're doing the show, I will stop. I will stop.
So, well, anyway. I'll get the Corey stuff done. Hopefully for the next show. Probably the show after the next.
Did you say that last week?
Yeah, I did, but it's been busy. I did Cocoa, and then I had a film week, and it gets manic.
By the time
I had a really good film week with Tim, though. We were maybe the only two people in America who were sympathetic to Mother's Day, the Gary Marshall film.
What?
Look, it's a Gary Marshall film. The last two films that he made were Valentine's Day and New Year's Eve. What was anyone seriously thinking? Did you think that suddenly you'd walk into Mother's Day and it would be like, oh my gosh, it's like Godfather 2? It's freaking Mother's Day. It's got Julia Roberts and Jennifer Aniston and Kate Hudson and Jason Sudeikis, and it is what it is. It's a Gary Marshall movie.
But I think even by the low bar currently set by Gary Marshall movies, this one does not even eclipse that.
It's better than Valentine's Day, and it's way better than New Year's Eve.
Really?
Yes.
So of all the minor holiday movies he's done, this is the best one.
Look, the actors are having fun. I think what everyone resents is the fact that Gary Marshall is an 81-year-old man who can look at this incredibly screwed-up world and still, after all these years, see it through these rose-colored, Love American-style glasses. And he does. He sees. He sees. And Tim made the really good point. It's not like he doesn't know what's going on. There's like homophobia and war death, and there's all of the things that are sort of tearing the world apart politically and socially and everything else. He deals with them in this movie, but at the end of the day, he just says, "But you know what? Love conquers all, and can't we all just love each other?" And it's just him with his innate sweetness. Do you realize he has written hundreds of the best television ever aired? Gary Marshall?
At a time,
going back into the 50s.
Yes, at a time when you can write stories. See, I don't think culturally we can accept stories like what he writes anymore.
Odd Couple.
Because we're all too bitter and angry, and we think we know everything.
And that's the thing. People are ripping him because he's not bitter and angry enough. I'm kind of glad. I think it's wonderful. He still is who he is. He's true to who he is. Hundreds of episodes of Laverne and Shirley and Happy Days and The Odd Couple and Dick Van Dyke Show and on and on and on and on. It's just unbelievable. He's a machine. I have nothing but love and respect for Gary Marshall. Seriously.
Look at you.
I admire the guy. So I'm not gonna rip on Mother's Day. We saw Keanu as well. We talked about that.
Oh, was it good?
You know what? It's like a great big giant overextended Key and Peele sketch, but it's like a transitional thing for them. Peele basically co-wrote it. Key didn't have any hand in writing it, but they're doing their shtick. They're doing the thing that they do. All that kind of subversive racial stereotype, turning it on its head stuff. It's very funny. But there are a lot of just them doing their banter, doing the talking head stuff that they do, and that they do so well. But it's parts of it are just insanely funny. They're very, very funny.
Now, I did not get
There's a whole George Michael subplot that's really outrageous.
I did not get an invite to that. Did you get an invite to that, or did you have to chase after it? No, well, you saw it on Film Week.
I saw it for Film Week, but
did Film Week hook you up with the publicist and everything? Because there was no all media invite sent out for that.
I'm trying to think. I think I did have to chase after it.
Yes.
I did. Yes, I did. Now that I recall, yes, I did have to chase after it.
Yes.
Yep. They did not push it, which is weird, but anyway. All right. Well, you know what? We had promised everybody a Voxbox last week. Why don't we? Let's do it.
Well, really?
Now, right now, top of the show.
Hey Mark and Wade, this is Kevin Mower here. Just following up on the whole discussion about 4K TVs. Why do you think retailers have been pushing 4K TVs for so long now? It really feels like it's been a couple of years that it's been sort of the hot item when it comes to electronics. And yet, as you say, there's only one Blu-ray player out there that outputs 4K. I think there's a Roku 4, something like that outputs 4K. The PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, neither of them do. I don't even know what else can do 4K at this point. So what sense does that really make? Just want to see if I can get your input on that. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Kevin. Really good question. Mark, don't you feel like it... That it was largely jumping ship from the waning 3D market to 4K, that was a way to somehow try to restore demand that was waning a little bit?
Well, 3D Blu-ray never got any traction.
Right.
So if you're going to have to, if the studios want to make any more money, right, squeeze any more blood out of the packaged media stone, they've got to come up with something, and this is really it. I mean, if you take a look at some of the films that have come out on Blu-ray 4K and will come out on 4K, they're starting to get a little bit better with it. I mean, you got Fury Road is out now, and X-Men is out now. Life of Pi is probably good in 4K. Deadpool's coming out in 4K.
Yeah.
So there's good stuff coming out, but again, I just think that, based on the failure of, because some of these home, what was the competing Blu-ray HD DVD?
Yeah.
From HD DVD all the way to 3D Blu-ray, there are all these like packaged media home theater failures.
Yeah.
That people start to get a little bit worried that if they upgrade everything, it's going to be for naught.
Well, there's also, if you remember in the early days of HD TV, there was no HDMI. People were using there were like 3 or 4 different ways of hooking your TV up, and there was sort of no standardized interface. The resolution on the TV was the same, but how you got information into the television was through all kinds of weird converters and computer cables, and it was very, very strange, and that took a while to standardize. And the same problem has happened here. All of these 4K TVs that were the first out, they all featured HDCP, which is a copy protection standard. They featured HDCP 1.4. So a lot of people who bought early 4K televisions are going to have a problem, and they're not going to know why. And it's going to, and I'm waiting for this to kind of blow up. They're going to be getting new 4K Blu-rays. I think there's actually a second Blu-ray player now. Didn't Sony finally come out with their 4K player? I think now there's a Samsung and a Sony.
There's a Samsung, there's a couple Panasonics, and there is a Sony.
Yeah, the Samsung was the first one out, and I think now we've had some others catch up. And obviously, through the end of the year and early next year, it's going to continue to blow up. Everybody's going to get them out. Oppo's going to get theirs out by the end of the year and probably blow everybody else away. But if you've got like a brand spanking new 4K player and a brand new disc, and you plop that in and you connect that player and the disc that are expecting an HDCP 2.2 standard, and the television is 1.4, they're not going to talk to each other. You got to go get a converter. And there's a converter out there it's not outrageously expensive. It's the Blackbird 4K Pro HDCP converter. Goes from 2.2 to 1.4, and it'll take care of that. But that 2.2, 1.4 HDCP thing, nobody's talking about that, and they need to. And then there's HDMI 2.0, which if you really, you have to be using the HDMI 2.0 cables. You got to have a receiver that is HDMI 2.0 compliant. There's a whole world of compatibility issues that have to be ironed out. And I'm afraid that they've all gotten so quickly, they've jumped ship so quickly before all this is ready for prime time, that a lot of people are going to be afraid of 4K. They're going to be like, hey, man, this isn't plug and play. I just want to take a TV and plug it in and watch my Blu-ray movie or whatever on my Roku or my Apple TV. And it's not that easy yet. There's a bit of a thing that has to happen. And if it takes too long to shake that out, no one's going to want to adopt this.
Well, that's the thing. I think people are waiting to see. I'm not going to be the first one to jump in. I'll let other people jump in, and then when it gets traction, then I'll jump in. The danger is that everybody's saying that, so everybody's waiting for the next person to jump in, so nobody's jumping in.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a money move, and for a lot of stuff that is on 4K looks good. Some of it, like The Revenant, looks amazing. But you need a giant TV to really see the difference, and you've got to be sitting pretty close to that TV. And I'm not sure the market is as big as they think it is, and I'm not sure it's going to justify the cost long term. I think
not when you've got
I think 4K it may wind up being I think everyone's going to wind up with a 4K TV, but I'm not sure that everyone's going to is really going to get on board 4K Blu-ray. I think that's always going to be a specialty high-end disc. And I think 4K may wind up being just a streaming format. I think that might be where it lives, off of Roku and Apple TV and iTunes and all that.
Look, you've got Joy, the David O. Russell film Joy with Jennifer Lawrence.
Yep, which we're talking about today.
That's coming out on 4K. Do you really think that the person who watches Joy is the person who's going to want to upgrade their TV, their Blu-ray player, their receiver?
It's funny you mention that, because they sent it to us on Blu-ray and not on 4K. And literally within just the past few hours, I actually sent an email off saying, would you be so kind as to send us the 4K? Because we'd really like to see how Jennifer Lawrence looks in 4K.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, well.
And a bunch of crap like Risen.
Yeah.
And older films too, which may not really benefit that much. Even older / modern films like Independence Day from '96 or Ghostbusters from 1984. I mean, how much are they going to really benefit from 4K?
The thing is, have those films been remastered in 4K? When they were digitally remastered specifically for Blu-ray, did they do 2K or did they do 4K? Because if they did 2K, then you're already on Blu-ray pretty much getting most of what you need. If they're then popping it to 4K, I'm wondering where's the extra resolution there, or did they go back and do a 4K remaster? Because it's expensive to do that. You have to sort of justify it. And
at what point does it not matter what a 1984 film looks like in 4K versus 2K?
I don't know.
I mean, really.
Again, and the issue, as our good friend Sean often points out, is it's not about more pixels. It's about better pixels. And people miss that as well, is that, it would be better to have a 1080p resolution, a 2K television, traditional HD TV, with that resolution if the pixels had higher bit rate or bit depth, color depth. If they were, if you had like 16-bit pixels, it would look better to the average eye than would a higher resolution with worse pixels.
Too complicated.
I know. It gets very technical.
All they're hoping for is the idea that 4K must be twice as good as 2K.
Yeah, exactly.
Because 2 times 2 is 4.
Well, they're not even it. Who knows? We'll see. Well, anyway, let's talk about a few movies. So we have we're going to go through some classic films here, and there's some really interesting stuff this week. Actually, we got a lot of Eastwood-ish stuff going on, and the first one is the Clint Eastwood directed American Sniper. There he is at 83 or whatever it is he is now, and
he's the man.
Most successful film of his entire career, either as an actor or a director.
Really, wasn't the thing with the war hero guy? The thing
American Sniper.
Oh, that's American.
That's what I'm talking about.
No, because I'm looking at these two older ones, which we'll talk about in a second.
No.
Well, you know why? Because people in the flyover states were in the mood for this movie.
And this is, of course, this has already been out on Blu-ray, but this is different. This is the Chris Kyle Commemorative Edition.
No, that's hard. That's such pandering. That's just terrible.
So here's the thing: is this worth double dipping for? Only if you are just mad for the cult of Chris Kyle. I love this movie. I really do. I did not see it as the politicized thing that a lot of other people saw. To me, this is a movie about a guy torn between two families, the band of brothers and his family at home, and I think that's a universal military struggle. So I found that emotionally very compelling, and I think Bradley Cooper is tremendous. But it, ultimately it did become a political football because, Fox News, especially Sean Hannity, kind of picked up the movie and waved it like a flag, and then, the reaction to the counter-reaction, and the movie wound up getting kind of sucked down this rabbit hole of controversy that it really didn't deserve. But that being said, if you are big on Chris Kyle, boy, you'll be big on this. $1 of your purchase of this will be donated to the Chris Kyle Frog Foundation. I want you to know that.
I'm just saying there's just something really, really just icky about that.
Except in certain states.
Oh, that's my phone.
Oh, well, by all means, go. And then also included is
That phone never rings.
That phone?
Never
That's your
rings.
home phone, right?
Yes.
Your actual, non-cell home phone.
Well, I have a VoIP phone.
Yes.
So anybody I don't
As
want,
I do.
anybody I don't want to have my cell phone,
Yeah.
I just give them that phone and then ignore it.
Oh, like the swipe right people.
Exactly.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Sweet.
So anyway, there's a commemorative bonus disc on here with with 3 documentaries on it that Bradley Cooper actually went back and narrates, and one is about Navy SEALs, another one is all about the actual Chris Kyle, and the last one is just sort of a general tribute to veterans. All of this is thrown together, and of course there's stuff that was previously on the previous disc, and all of this is really just to get more juice out of this movie, I guess. Anyway, it's not a different cut; it's the same film. It's just got a few more things on it, and on that second disc, and that's basically it. So, continuing our Clint Fest, Mark, what else do we have?
We have True Crime.
Yeah.
True Crime from 1999. This is, this is okay Clint. This is not total kick-ass Clint, and it's not lame Clint. It's somewhere in the middle. He plays a journalist who has to find out who really killed this San Quentin death row prisoner who's slated to die at midnight. And it's got a good cast. James Woods, Diane Verona, who you might remember from Heat. Dennis Leary is in this. And, it's got a ticking clock kind of thriller edge thing, which I kind of liked. There's kind of a moral drama there, too, about the death penalty, which I kind of liked. So, it's kind of a puzzle picture whodunit thing that I thought was pretty good. It's middling Clint, but I just love him.
Middling
okay.
Clint, it's not a bad film.
It's not a bad film.
Yeah.
Now this one, City Heat, this one is a little bit of a woe-begotten, kind of a amiable, lukewarm, tongue-in-cheek kind of gangster comedy.
Yeah.
Now Richard Benjamin, an actor turned director. He, as I understand, was a last-minute replacement as director, and he winds up doing an okay job with Clint and Burt Reynolds. This is back when Burt Reynolds was like, a thing. It's 1984. This is back when Burt Reynolds was kind of in his heyday.
This is my first year at UCLA. I was working at the National Theater just down the street from the Bruin where this opened, and I remember the premiere of this thing. I was hanging out there, kind of, in the wings with my employee privileges in the same chain. I wasn't working, obviously, it's a different theater, but I remember that premiere so well, and I remember Clint and Burt and everybody walking in. I still have a button with little LEDs that blink on it and says City Heat. Blink, 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 blink. I still have that.
Well,
the battery wore out, of course, about, a few decades ago, but I still have it.
Well, it's, again, like the other one, it's got a good cast. Irene Cara is a nightclub singer. Madeline Kahn is in this. Vamping it up. There's lots of fight scenes and shootouts, and I guess there are moments in this film where you wonder whether Clint is trying to kind of send up his persona, but there's other moments where you're like, this thing is just not coming together. So I would pass on City Heat.
And let me hit a couple of these things here. I got some really kind of weird culty stuff. So I'll go through this fairly quickly. The City of the Dead with Christopher Lee and Venetia Stevenson is one of those. Actually, one of those early Christopher Lee horror things. This is not later kind of Christopher Lee when he's a little older and grayer and more Dracula-ish. This is earlier. Actually, right about 1960, And it's a witchcraft thing. It's a low budget witchcraft horror thing, and it really rides entirely on Christopher Lee. Frankly, I mean he's leaner and younger, and but still he's got that voice and he's got that demeanor, and he's just one of those guys who dominates the screen. So never mind the fact that you've got this very strange kind of Salem witch in the present day kind of mystery thriller going on that doesn't really work very well. It's not very scary, but Christopher Lee is great to watch. And you get a commentary by Bruce Hallenbeck, who's a horror film expert who talks all about this and the whole British horror thing. Behind-the-scenes interview with Christopher Lee from 2001. You also get the original British version with 2 additional minutes of footage that is not in the American version of this, which was under a different title, Horror Hotel. And then, there's also a Christopher Lee commentary and another interview with Christopher Lee. There's a whole bunch of stuff on here. So it's for Christopher Lee fans, bottom line. And then we also have a really creepy thing here. This is a 4-disc collector's edition of Jorg Buttgereit's Sex Murder...
My butt goes right. What are you talking about?
Jorg Buttgereit. Jorg Buttgereit. This is Sex Murder Art. And this is effectively 4...
So smart. Sex,
yes.
Murder, art.
What
Smart.
this is a 4-disc boxed set of 4 films. These are the films of Jorg Buttgereit. I don't really know much about Jorg Buttgereit, but I know some of his films, which include Necromantic and Necromantic 2, both of which are disgusting, Der Todesking, which we talked about separately on this show, and Schramm, which is a serial killer movie that is absolutely disgusting. And
wait, is that a story about how a football coach Tex Schramm was a
Schramm? Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. Anyway, these are really nasty movies. And Buttgereit, whatever. I guess when your last name starts with Butt, that's where you go for. But anyway, these are not fun films, but they do have that really nasty, low-budget slasher horror vibe to them that a lot of people really get into. And, if he's your guy, well, then you got this 4-disc set from Called Epics here, which will just completely scratch your itch. Also includes soundtrack CDs and a 40-page booklet, which has all kinds of stuff in it on the Jorg Buttgereit. But, it's a nice set. I just don't like these movies. And then the last 2 here, as long as we are on the cult thing, is from Arrow Video, who keeps doing really interesting stuff, and a lot of it exploitation and cult, is Dillinger DVD and Blu-ray combo set. This is the Sam Arkoff production of Dillinger, which is one of the better AIP things from the era. Obviously not great, but it's one of the better films that they did, and it's noteworthy primarily because of who wrote and directed it and because of who did the music. It was written and directed by one of the most macho, muscular, badass dudes in Hollywood history, a man who is unapologetically just... like Michael Bay withers in his presence. We're talking, of course, about John Milius.
He was a John Milius. By the way, there's a great documentary about John Milius if you want to. It's on Netflix.
Which I haven't seen. I need to watch that. I'm going to watch that tonight. Thank you for reminding me. I need to watch that. What's it called? What's the name of it?
It's called... I can't think of a joke, but hang on. Hang on. I'll look for it.
Milius to 1. Well, anyway, I will keep vamping here.
It's called Milius.
Milius, all right. I got to check that out. I heard great things about that. Anyway, Warren Oates and Ben Johnson are in this, and this basically came on the heels of Bonnie and Clyde, and it was meant to capitalize on that whole gangster era outlaw fascination that was suddenly taking movies over again, and Bonnie and Clyde certainly lit that. But Barry Dvorak did the music, which is great. And Barry Dvorak, big guy in TV, he wrote a lot of great TV themes and TV scores, so heaps and heaps of extras here. This is based from a 2K restoration of the original negative. You get an audio commentary with Stephen Prince, who does a lot of great commentaries, and this one is really, really good. It's a lot of interesting information in here. A new interview with director of photography Jules Brenner, a new interview with Lawrence Gordon, who produced it when he was just a young pup. He's a big deal now. And you know what? It's fine. I mean, it's not there have been better Dillinger documentaries that I would recommend, but this is, if you're going to compare this to like the Robert Conrad Dillinger movie, there's, Lady in Red or whatever that was. This is way, way, way better. So, Early Amelia is definitely worth checking out. And then lastly, here's Dangerous Men, which they actually put this on the cover, and I'm kind of sort of amazed. They put some quotes from. There's a quote here from Hitfix, which is the supreme masterpiece of no rules action film insanity. Fair enough. And then there's a tagline which I find amazing that they put this on the cover. They put asterisks in there, but it says the Holy Grail of Holy F-ing S. And I'll let you fill in the asterisks. This is from Draft House Films, and it's just pretty badly acted, but unrelenting kind of revenge cop thriller violence. You fill in all the blanks. We've seen this kind of film many times previously, but this is kind of a whole weird culty retro kind of exploitation film quality to it. And sure, why not? Go for it. It's got heaps and heaps of extras. If you just love that nasty, bloody grindhouse kind of ultra-violent revenge film, then go and watch Dangerous Men. It'll totally scratch that itch.
There you go, Wade. All right, let's check out the 30th anniversary Steelbook edition of the gay recruitment film Top Gun. Now, the special features here are exactly the same as they were on the 2013 release, so I do not suggest getting this. However, if you love steelbooks, which, by the way, I do have a soft spot for steelbooks. I do. I think they're kind of cool, but it's not cool enough, especially with all the same extras. It is not cool enough to upgrade if you already have the one from 2013. Again, this is all the same. It's 2 discs. The first disc has the Blu-ray and all the special features, including a commentary by Jerry Bruckheimer and the late Tony Scott. And then the second disc is just the DVD and the special features as well. So anyway, Top Gun, you know what, you love it. Also,
why are they trying to do a sequel to this?
Well, I'm surprised Tom Cruise wants to do it.
Well, because
Tom Cruise does not Tom Cruise does not look like a backward-thinking guy to me. He feels like he always wants to do the newest, freshest, most modern thing.
But this is Megan Ellison's brother, David Ellison. He's got like his $1 billion inheritance. He wants to throw it at something, and he loves this movie.
Cruise.
Why would Tom do it? I guess you know what?
The only thing is the only thing that surprises me is how. Not only does Tom Cruise keep doing Mission Impossible films, but how good they are. If you look at that series is a good series.
It's a good series, even though all the set pieces are totally contrived, and there's no reason for him to be holding his breath underwater in Morocco with the computer mainframe. But it makes no sense whatsoever. But it's fun.
Sure. Yep. Yeah. Yep. Give it up for Mission Impossible. And how strange is it to remember that the original film was directed by Brian De Palma.
Sweet, right?
It seems like it was 50 years ago.
I know. Saw that at the National. You remember that screening, don't you? You were there.
Was I there?
You were there at the National.
Really?
Yeah. Everybody went nuts as soon as the lights went down. 1,100 people in the theater, and suddenly, there was that prologue, and then dun 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 dun. Oh my gosh, that music in that theater, and the fuse, and the whole thing, and the images, and everybody went completely bonkers. That was quite a thing.
Wait, I'm a huge fan of the Warner Archive Collection's Forbidden Hollywood series. As you know, the Forbidden Hollywood series is all these pre-code films. The pre-code, of course, started in about 1929, 1930, and it goes from then to when the industry really started to enforce the Motion Picture Production Code in 1934. So between 1929/30 and 34, you got a lot of films that had a lot of sexual innuendo and drug use and even homosexuality and some pretty intense violence for the time, and abortion. Oh my God, 1929, 1930, they're doing a film about abortion. That's incredible. So some of the stuff was, while it's a bit funny now, you got to realize what films were like back then. And when you're talking about abortion in 1920 and 1931, that was a big deal. Homosexuality, that was a big deal. Prostitution, that was a big deal. And then once the production code started to become enforced, the industry could no longer get away with any of that stuff. So here we have Volume 10.
It's a great series. I love all of these.
Yeah, I mean,
I love them all.
When you get to Volume 10, you're starting to get to not the dregs, but you're starting to kind of go to the well one too many times. We have Guilty Hands, The Mouthpiece, Secrets of the French Police, which was my favorite of these, The Match King, and Ever in My Heart. There's not necessarily anybody that you would necessarily know. I mean, Lionel Barrymore's in Guilty Hands. A couple other people you might recognize, but generally speaking, you're really here for its historical value, the idea that in 1934, the industry was going to pretty much censor itself for almost 50 years. I mean, 34, the production code ended basically, although functionally it had ended a few years earlier. It definitely ended in 1968 when the ratings.
That was absolutely the end. Yeah, the ratings code made it obsolete.
Right. But between 1929 and 1934, you got these great films, Forbidden Hollywood, love them. Also, we have 2 B movies for you to talk about. Charles Bronson in Assassination. Now, Charles Bronson, this is a Golden Globus film. Now, for a while, Bronson was sort of the in-house action star of Golden and Globus. He was the guy who did all the 17 Death Wish sequels. He would do all this crap for them, and one of the crap films he did was Assassination. This features Jill Ireland. Of course, Charles Bronson and Jill Ireland were romantically involved.
When she died, I was so sad for him. She died very, very young of cancer.
That is
really
true.
Awful.
Yes, I know. That is definitely agreed. But anyway, this is just typical, late 80s era Charles Bronson. Really cheesy, just big explosions and totally cheeseball stuff. Total Golden Globus. I would definitely pass on it. Also, there's a film that I remember as a kid that I just thought this thing was really kind of cool / disgusting.
They showed this on TV all the time when we were growing up.
They did, didn't they?
All the time, and it was always just the creepiest thing. Poor Dirk Benedict.
It's a movie called.
But this is why he wound up on Battlestar Galactica and then the A-Team. This is where he broke through. Dirk Benedict. This was his first big break.
Will you let me say the name of this film?
Go ahead, say the name of
this film is called. That is the name of the film. It's with Strother Martin and Dirk Benedict. And it's about a snake expert, and
he turns into a snake.
The dude turns into a snake, and it's terrible.
You know what? It was part of a whole. This was a whole horror moment. There was a moment when these people turning into things. The Fly.
Well, this is 1973, so this is like
an invasion of the Bee Girls, and there's a whole kind of weird reptilian insect human hybrid moment there in the late 60s and early 70s, and The Fly obviously is a lot older, but
executive producer, by the way, the EPs on this, Richard Zanuck and David Brown, who of course would go on to have amazing success with Jaws and so forth and so on.
Like a year later,
not a while. So they went from to Jaws.
To Jaws, yeah, which is actually not that incredible of a leap
if
you think.
Animal-y, whatever related.
Okay, got a couple of really good noirs here. These are Blu-rays, but they are MOD from Flickr Alley. So you want these, you got to go to flickralley.com and you got to order it directly from them. The first one is the best one, Woman on the Run, which is this fantastic Anne Sheridan, film. Anne Sheridan, basically, she's not really a femme fatale in this. She's on the run. She's trying to find her husband, and she's a murder witness, and she's really, really good in it. And it's a great vehicle for her. It's a kind of an overlooked noir. The other one is a little more kind of. It's not as good, but from a kitsch standpoint, from kind of a camp standpoint, might be a little better. It's Too Late for Tears. Too Late for Tears has a really juicy performance by Elizabeth Scott, who is this woman who, with her husband, played by Arthur Kennedy, they come into possession of some money that they shouldn't be in possession of, and it's kind of a lot of fun. That's from '49, and Woman on the Run is from 1950. And they're just gorgeous. I mean, the movies are not brilliant, but they're part of the MOD line. And if you are a fan of the genre, then you'll definitely want to get hold of these. Flickr Alley is, bar none. They do great jobs with taking old films and working with the Film Noir Foundation and the UCLA Film and Television Archive, and really giving these things the juicy television treatment. So this is some of the best black and white MOD Blu-ray that I have yet seen. It's better than actually most of the Warner Archive Blu-rays, to be honest. They really, really put some good attention to this. So if you like the genre, if you like the films, go for it.
Wait, there were 2 films.
Yes.
And you know where I'm going with this.
I know where you're going with this.
There are 2 films about the late Olympic gold medalist runner Prefontaine.
Yep.
One was
That
called,
was the first one.
This was the first one. This was
Yeah.
directed by Steve James in 1997. Of course, the guy who gave us Hoop Dreams. And the other one was called Without Limits, and was directed by Robert Towne, who wrote Chinatown.
I have a story, but I'll let you finish this.
You tell us your story. I actually moderately prefer Without Limits.
Okay. Without Limits, which starred, what's his behoofus? Billy Crudup. Billy Crudup.
What's his behoofus?
What's his behoofus?
I remember that.
Okay. Billy Crudup. So Billy Crudup played Prefontaine in that movie.
Without Limits.
In Without Limits. And this one stars... Go ahead, tell everybody.
Jared Leto.
Thank you. The Joker. So Jared Leto, of course, at the time, is a much more intense actor. He's already got that weird thing going. And the two performances are completely different. Billy Crudup plays Prefontaine as kind of a really sweet, romantic, but very cocky and arrogant, but, kind of guy. Jared Leto plays him like a borderline psychopath. He's completely disconnected from reality. He just wants to run and just he's just weird, and he's like a little bit of madness in his eyes. And I don't think the real Steve Prefontaine was, I've seen interviews. He's not like any of them, but Jared Leto definitely took it to a weirder edge. And there's a kind of a weird Reds type quasi-documentary thing going on here with interviews and stuff. Here's my story. So I saw Prefontaine, and I thought it was really interesting. And then I saw Without Limits, and it felt a lot more conventional. And then I was asked to interview Robert Towne for a piece, to do a little sit-down with him. And it was around Christmas time. I remember that because Robert Towne, I went to his house in the Pacific Palisades, and he had the big Christmas tree and the whole thing. And I didn't quite realize what was going on until I talked to the publicist afterwards. And the publicist said, I don't know why they would do this, because I told the publicist, I said, yeah, I liked the film. I think I preferred Prefontaine, though. And he went and he told Robert Towne that. And Robert Towne was like, what? God damn it, that movie's a piece of... And he because I said it just felt more realistic. So without me knowing that the publicist had told Robert Towne that, here I am sitting in Robert Towne's living room, and he pulls out a tape and he puts it in the VHS player, and he's showing me the movie and the running scenes, and he says, now that's the real Steve Prefontaine, and cut, and that's Billy Crudup. And cut, and that's the real Steve Prefontaine, and cut, and that's Billy Crudup. And he's going back and forth, and he's showing me how amazing Billy Crudup is because he was able to intercut between footage of the real Steve Prefontaine and Billy Crudup, and that's what makes his film better.
Wait, why are you in his home?
Because I was doing an interview with him.
Oh, got it.
A piece for Entertainment Today. Herb. This was a Herb thing.
Yeah.
You remember Herb?
Of course.
So anyway, that was because the publicist told Robert Towne that I didn't like his movie, which isn't true. But I think in hindsight, when I look back on it, I think Robert Towne scared me into liking Without Limits more. So anyway, I am still fond of Prefontaine. I think it's an underrated film. But watch them both. Make up your own mind. Watch them both. Steve James, still a really good director. Hasn't really had the feature fictional career that he deserved. But anyway, there it is. Yes, Mark, carry on. You had another film there? Or shall I go on these?
No, you can go on. Well, here's the thing. We should talk about what?
Yes.
We should talk about what?
What? Who's on what?
Who's on what? Mm-hmm. Roman Polanski, 1973. He directed, and it was released, an X-rated film.
Yes.
X-rated film.
Yeah.
Called What?
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the thing with What. When this thing came out in 1973, this thing got its ass kicked.
Yes,
Everybody thought this was just... without any redeeming social value whatsoever. They thought this thing was just a bizarre piece of crap that just went nowhere slow.
Yeah.
And it really got its butt kicked. And, I'm actually kind of glad, just for historical purposes, if nothing else, that Severin has gone ahead and released this thing on Blu-ray. And, Sidney Rome, who plays the American girl, kind of this like wide-eyed American girl who's running around Asia and Europe, and gets in all sorts of madcap, sexy adventures. They interviewed her. I like that. Interview with the composer. That's always cool. Trailer. That's fine, too. So this thing is just, I think with age, I think the film is less bawdy and X-rated than it is just kind of odd. But it's a little corner of Polanski's career that no one really remembers. And I like the fact that they have resurrected this film called What? So, Marcello Mastroianni and Sidney Rome and Hugh Griffith and Polanski himself are in this. So I would definitely, if you love Polanski and you're used to Polanski directing only certain sorts of films, you might want to check out What to see a whole new side of him. Interesting historical find, and good for them for releasing it.
Yeah, no, it's a real archival thing. So we got a couple of double features here. One from the Scream Factory line of Shout Factory. It is Destroyer and Edge of Sanity, a couple of Anthony Perkins films. Destroyer is just ridiculous. It's basically a serial killer gets electrocuted in the electric chair and comes
Wait,
back.
we did this last week.
Did we?
Yes.
We did, didn't we?
I did a whole Tony Perkins thing. We were talking
That's
about Tony
right.
Perkins
You know what?
and how he was really good in the Joan Didion film, Played as It
I
Lays.
forgot we did it last week. Never mind. What I see. I missed.
Wade, you are getting old. You're losing your
right.
memory.
Well, I was gonna say Edge of Sanity. I keep forgetting that he did Edge of Sanity. I mean, it's like it's that whole weird Jekyll and Hyde thing, whatever. So here's the other double feature. Blue Underground with The Million Eyes of Sumuru and The Girl from Rio. This is from Blue Underground, a totally weird double feature of a couple of female-centric, feministic exploitation films that have completely gone under the radar, and they deserve to be rediscovered. These are from the late '60s. They are from an era that kind of sits awkwardly between the kind of funky Barbarella exploitation era of the late '60s, and then obviously the the blaxploitation shift that goes more toward the women in prison films and the Pam Grier stuff in the early '70s. So these kind of have a foot in each. The Girl from Rio is much better than The Million Eyes of Sumuru. The Girl from Rio is actually kind of a nice little weird Barbarella-esque spy thing. It's got its moments. It's directed by Jess Franco. Doesn't feel very Jess Franco-ish, though. It's much better than anything else Jess Franco did, which leads me to think that Jess Franco probably had very, very little to do with it. And then The Million Eyes of Sumuru is noteworthy really only because it has a really, really good cast, which includes Klaus Kinski, Wilfred Hyde-White, who had been in My Fair Lady just a few years earlier, which is just weird, and then Frankie Avalon, of course. So this is, essentially another one of those, female mega villain hell-bent on world domination. We've got a lot of those, right? They were all over the place. Anyway, both of these look really good, and they're culty, and they're cool, and they're fun, and, obviously Sumuru not as good as The Girl from Rio, but if you like the whole Barbarella vibe, you'll probably love it. And then before we get into new movies, and we got some kind of a weird whole new movie thing this week. It's an interesting collection of things, but we have 3 from the 20th Century Fox Cinema Archives. These are all MOD on DVD-R. And they're worth checking out. None of them are great, but they all kind of have neat little kitsch pedigree to them. Sierra Baron is a western with Brian Keith and Rick Jason. Both of them really good actors. I've often sung the praises of Rick Jason, who was in Day of the Wolves, one of my all-time favorite films from the early '70s, and then of course was part of the combat team on television. And then Dan Daly and Ann Baxter in You're My Everything, wonderful little Technicolor musical. That's not a great film, but directed by Walter Lang, who did a lot of good programmers from the day. And then we've got Will Rogers in Too Busy to Work. With Dick Powell, and this is actually probably the most interesting film of the whole lot because it basically finds humor in the Depression, which is something that only somebody like Will Rogers could do. Will Rogers was freaking amazing, just an American treasure, and people forget what a great humorist he was, but also how good he was in movies. And it's unless you have a really working knowledge of the Depression, you don't quite understand what a great trick this was. But it, again, not a genius film, but really one of the more interesting Will Rogers films from the day. So all really good stuff.
It's funny with Will Rogers; he was such a wit that you really wonder why there's not been any sort of reappreciation of him.
Yeah,
because he was like the Daily Show of his day.
Oh, that's really true. That's a good
he
analogy.
Was a political wit.
Yeah.
He was like a little like Mark Twain.
Yeah.
But and obviously his life ended way too short, way too tragically. But still, Will Rogers, I think that guy deserves a reappreciation. He's just absolutely. I just love Will Rogers.
I agree. Agree completely. All right, new movies.
Yes.
Let's see here. I'll make a quick mention of this. Let me just get this one out of the way before we'll talk about Joy in a moment. So Emelie The babysitter is here. Emelie is a low budget, but I wanted to hate this movie, but I found myself kind of begrudgingly admiring it because the lead performance is actually really, really good. So Emelie is basically The Hand That Rocks the Cradle done on a shoestring budget. That's pretty much what it is. There's just no way around it. The lead actress is Sarah Bolger, who plays a babysitter that seems to be just wonderful. And she sits down. This couple, they've had her. She's coming over to take care of the kids, and they're going to go out for an evening. And of course, it turns out that she is not what they expected when they hired the babysitter. I won't give you any of the other twists and turns, but it gets really, really creepy. And it's so clearly A Hand That Knocks the Cradle knockoff, but yet Sarah Bolger is so good that you're willing to kind of forgive it. And the direction is pretty solid. They didn't have a lot of money to make this, but the direction's pretty solid. It's got some chills and thrills and suspenseful moments. So even though there's really no reason why this should not just be absolutely pilloried as a complete and total ripoff, they hired the right actress. So it's called Emelie, Emelie. If you like Hand That Rocks the Cradle, you'll probably like this.
Wade, we used to be, big fans of Adam McGoyan. And
what the hell happened?
He has been in the wilderness for a long time.
Gosh.
But I've got to say, I guess, I can imagine a film like Remember, which features Christopher Plummer and Martin Landau. Great twosome. I can imagine
those two actors so deserve a better movie.
I didn't mind this movie, I think, as much as you did, maybe because I'm of the Jewish persuasion, because it's about these two elderly guys, or they're living out their last days, and they realize that the sadistic guard who killed their family in Auschwitz 50 years earlier has emigrated to the U.S. and is now living there under an assumed identity.
Yeah.
So they find this out, and they're going to grab a gun and get their revenge. So it sounds like a real potboiler. It sounds like something that Adam McGoyan is just going to have to bring all of his intellectual might to just make this thing even remotely interesting. And, yes, it's a little bit, some of the plot beats are convenient, and, it's a little gimmicky, but I have to say that I love Christopher Plummer. This guy is going to win himself like a Lifetime Achievement Oscar someday.
Yeah.
He's great. And Martin Landau, who hasn't worked as much as he used to in the last 10, 15 years, always great to see him. He's still terrific. And this thing is probably not as bad as I was expecting. So I do have to. There's some poignant stuff in it about growing old.
But doesn't it feel like Adam McGoyan had a moment from The Adjuster up through Felicia's Journey, including, Sweet Hereafter, kind of peaked with the Sweet Hereafter, and, you also had stuff like Exotica. I mean, it was a great period there. And then he just completely lost his mojo, and next thing you know, you've got Kevin Bacon and
When the Truth Lies.
My gosh,
I think it was terrible.
Just dreadful. It's just appalling stuff.
I'm not sure whether this is the only type of script he can get his hands on that he can actually get himself attached to. That maybe that's why he did it. But I'm saying that in the hands of another director, Remember would have been an even worse film.
Yeah.
You need somebody like McGoyan who's got at least some depth and intellectual heft to him to make this thing, to really mine the moral quandaries of the film. You need somebody who can do that.
I think he's just forgotten what he does well. I think he's forgotten what he does well. It's okay. Is Submerged. Kind of a gimmicky plot, but it's well directed, so you can forgive an awful lot here. Anyway, the whole concept here is you got a limousine that goes off the road and into the water, and there's a whole kidnapping thing in here, and basically the whole thing is just designed to do some underwater set piecey stuff. And really, honestly, the plot does not work. I've ignored half a dozen plot twists that make absolutely no sense whatsoever, but it's okay. It's nicely put together. The director, Stephen Miller, will get good work out of this. He shows some chops here, and really that's all this is designed to do, is just to basically show some. It's a bit of a show reel. So it's a resume piece, and he does a good job. So. You're looking for some familiar faces. There's a few of them in here, including Mario Van Peebles, who I thought had completely gone off world, off colony. So check it out. It's well done. It's a nice little pass. It's good for a rental. Pass a couple of hours.
Wait, all you Donald Trump fans may want to check out Hostile Border, because it's about a young woman who is
who builds a wall.
Exactly. who's an undocumented immigrant living in America. Then she gets arrested for credit card fraud and gets deported back to Mexico. And then all the Trump fans applauded in approval. Anyway, so that's where it all begins. And then her father gets involved in it, and then this dangerous smuggler gets involved in it, and so it becomes kind of like a crime thriller. It's actually not that bad. It was written by this woman, Caitlin McLaughlin. I think it's her first writing credit. And you know what? You got to give her credit for at least trying to give us some incisive dialogue, keep the people front and center, and not just like the crime stuff. So you kind of have to give her some props for that. So there's a lot of character building in there, a lot of good action stuff. Not a great film, It doesn't really star anybody who you would necessarily want to make a point to rent. But still, Hostile Border, not bad. We'll see what happens with director Michael Dwyer. See if he goes anywhere. But Hostile Border, a little bit of a surprise.
So we got a couple movies here. We always talk. One thing we always enjoy on the show is movies that go for the same marketing, the same plot, the same artwork. And I find this fascinating. Look at this, Mark. How about that? That's almost like you could put those two covers together, and it's like one big panorama, right? They're almost identical artwork. Tell me I'm not.
It does look like the same one sheet.
The same photo sheet.
You put them together, it could make an actual one sheet.
So these are two Afghan, military mission guys on a mission in Afghanistan fighting the Taliban movies. One is Hyena Road. The other one is Sniper, Special Ops, as long as we're talking about snipers. You think Bradley Cooper was a sniper? No, I'll tell you who's a sniper. Steven Seagal and Van Damme.
I can't believe that. Look, Seagal, I have a friend who used to work for Seagal.
Uh-huh.
And that guy, he just goes to whatever crazy country or Russian, whatever oligarch will give him his rate and makes 10 movies a year where he is lazy and does not want to do anything other than just sit and read dialogue.
I just want to show you again. This says Seagal and Van Damme. And people read this and they're like, really? Steven Seagal and Jean-Claude Van Damme? No. Van Damme, D-A-M. Rob Van Damme.
Oh, that's terrible.
Isn't that hilarious?
Good job. If I was Jean-Claude Van Damme, I'd be pissed off.
Of course, absolutely.
Interesting.
So that's what's going on here. Rob Van Dam building a career by basically ripping off a guy's name. I have no idea who Rob Van Dam is. But anyway...
Well, okay. Who is Rob Van Dam? A guy starring in Steven Seagal films. That's who he is.
Exactly.
What does that tell you?
So anyway, the idea here is really kind of silly. Basically, this Van Dam guy who's a nobody, he and Steven Seagal are a couple of guys who get shafted by this mission to rescue a U.S. Congressman who's been kidnapped by the Taliban, and now it's like, behind enemy lines. It becomes one of those things. It's cheesy, and Seagal's not...
This friend of mine had this funny story about Seagal shooting one of his cop procedural movies. He said there was a scene where Seagal... It took place in the precinct, and Seagal had to walk across the room, right, and deliver his dialogue to his police captain. Uh-huh. And so Seagal, who's so fat and old and lazy now, he literally says, "Can I just sit in this chair and do it?" I believe my character would just sit in this chair and deliver his dialogue.
That's great.
He was basically so lazy he didn't want to do he didn't want to do 6 takes walking across a room.
That's fantastic. Well, Hyena Road is a much better movie. That doesn't mean it's good. It's just better. This is a Canadian independent film which is allegedly based on a real story, which is about a bunch of guys, a platoon of guys in Afghanistan who are looking for an Afghan freedom fighter known as the Ghost. And, it's better because it focuses a little bit more on character. It's a little bit less pyrotechnic, but it's still not that great. I mean, it's strictly for people that just can't get enough guys in a platoon on a mission in Afghanistan movies. So, load up those two movies and knock yourself out.
Before we talk about the big release of the week, let's just say that Dominic Swain and Tracy Lords are in a film. Arkansas Women's Prison Massacre.
Ooh.
Do you want to hear about this?
Yeah, go ahead. Knock it out.
It's called Arkansas Women's Prison Massacre. Mm-hmm. It stars Dominic Swain and Tracy Lords.
Sharknado in Arkansas.
What else?
Crossover, huh?
Yes, and it's all about... the whole thing takes place thanks to a fracking mishap.
Oy.
And come on, guys, you're honest. Come on, just take it.
Fracking mishap.
We talk about Let's talk about movies people care about.
Okay, fine. Let's talk about Joy. Let's do it. Hit up Joy.
Joy is Joy. Let's just cut right to the chase. This movie's a mess. Yeah, I thought this movie was a mess.
It's a fun mess.
It is not a fun mess at
It is a
all.
fun
It is a
mess.
mess. I just think that David O. Russell, sometimes the guy's got the magic, and you just feel like whatever the magic he has, whatever pixie dust he sprinkles over his films, it was just not there. I felt I was in trouble the moment the thing started with a voiceover. Right, the moment movies start with voiceovers, already you're getting scared.
Mm-hmm.
Don't
Yep.
do that. There's got to be a better way to start your film. And Jennifer Lawrence, who was only nominated for an Oscar because people just want to see how she reacts and see if she'll trip over something on the way to the podium. That's all they want to see. She is terrific. Who doesn't love Jennifer Lawrence? But I just think that this thing was just a god awful mess. Of course, it's about the woman who created the mop there, Miracle Mop. And it's got David Russell. David O. Russell's, it's got his company players. De Niro's in it. Bradley Cooper's in it. But in the end, I just think this thing was aimless and misguided, and I just didn't think the thing comes alive briefly when Bradley Cooper shows up.
See, I can watch anything with the two of them, including that horrible, dreadful, misbegotten thing that they did for Susanna Bier.
I know, the thing that sat on the shelf for a while.
Yeah,
and,
for like 2 years,
yeah.
which is a mess of a movie. But somehow I just watch Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence, and I just enjoy watching the two of them together. They have that chemistry. I could watch it forever. But I enjoyed this movie. It is not good. I know it's a mess. I know it's all over the map. But come on, all that stuff where Robert De Niro comes back and moves into the basement with her ex-husband, and mom won't get out of bed. Come on, it's funny, it's wacky, it's crazy, it's a dysfunctional family. They can't get their act together. I love it.
It's just terrible. That movie sucked.
It's fun. It's fun. I mean, yes, it's about a lady who invented a mop. I don't know why.
Well,
but
here's the thing. I don't mind making a movie about a woman who invented a mop. She might have had an interesting life,
Sure.
interesting challenges. That's fine.
Yeah.
But with Russell, you just feel the movie you feel the movie is not coming together. You feel it is not telling the story in the way he wants it to be told.
I hear that.
You know what I mean? I just think that, yes, a couple of the performances, they work fine, moment to moment. Who doesn't love seeing those guys? But I just feel like its quirkiness is very mannered, and it's just all over the place. And even she's a bit of a one-dimensional cartoon. The way she faces down that guy at the end who wants to rip her off. It's just very disappointing. I just feel like David O. Russell's got to take a step back, right? Get a sense of what it is he does well, what he does not do well.
Okay.
And then just move forward from there.
That's fine. I'm not going to argue, but I still enjoyed it. So let's blow through some documentaries real quick just to wrap the show out. This is a really interesting documentary from the guy who did Darwin's Nightmare. And this is his new film. The director is Hubert Sauper, or Sauper. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his name, but Hubert Sauper. Darwin's Nightmare, and now he does his We Come as Friends, which is really kind of fascinating. It revisits modern-day Sudan as it is kind of coming apart geopolitically, and it looks at what that really entails and how the world sort of dives into this country like vultures and scavengers to sort of tear it apart and refashion it and exploit it. And it is really, really intriguing. It gives you a completely different perspective on the First World and the Third World and the way that geopolitics operates, especially on the continent of Africa. Really an interesting movie. Also excellent, What Our Fathers Did, A Nazi Legacy. This is a very personal film by David Evans. This is released by Oscilloscope. And I'm not sure I relate to this film quite the same way, but I did find it interesting. Essentially, what it looks at the relationship between two men who are both the children of Nazi officials, but who have very, very different perspectives on their own family history. And it is quite compelling, and it asks a lot of very difficult questions. It's not just sort of looking at Nazism from the outside as a facet of history, but it's looking at it through the perspective of people who have a familial relationship to it and who feel a certain degree of guilt and responsibility inherited for it. And the way the documentary is put together is quite interesting. Again, anyone who's listened to the show for any period of time knows that my mother, of course, was a young girl born in Germany and was a war refugee at the time. So I grew up hearing firsthand stories of Hitler and life under Hitler pretty unrelentingly. And I find it interesting whenever I hear someone else who has kind of a different relationship to the era and a different experience. So I couldn't necessarily access the emotions in this thing, but I do find it a compelling film to watch. And then I Don't Belong Anywhere. We talked last week about Chantal Akerman, that guest of ours. What was his name? Hubert Mashivitz? What was his name?
I could not remember his name at the time, let alone a week later.
Well, anyway, this is a documentary by Marianne Lambert, which is a wonderful companion film to that, which really it basically is a clinic on, a primer on why Chantal Akerman matters. And, Chantal Akerman made over 40 movies. And most of them are amazing, and many of them are intensely experimental and daring and brave. And this is a very personal moment that Chantal Akerman shared with Marianne Lambert before she passed away. Obviously, to sort of go into the film and into her body of work and sort of dissect it and give some insights and some illumination. It is it's wonderful. It's really, really, really wonderful, and it's not nearly long enough. It's just barely over an hour, and I could have watched this thing for 2 hours. I mean, it's like so many movies aren't even covered here. It's like
would you watch it twice?
You have well, there you go.
See?
I mean, you have a body of work as large as Chantal Akerman's. You really want something that sort of spends some time on it. I mean, that Woody Allen doc is over 2 hours. The Mel Brooks doc is like almost 2 hours. I mean, you sort of a body of work like this. I wanted more, but that being said, it is still really good. And it'll make you want to see all of her movies.
Well, I'm a big blues fan, and so I was very happy to discover this Blu-ray documentary called Pride and Joy. Now, in the early 70s, a guy named Bruce Iglauer founded this blues label called Alligator Records. And this is... jeez.
Yeah, I knocked it over.
That's fine. Anyway, so all these great blues artists from Chicago and all over the country. He found all these great singers, these great guitarists. I really enjoyed this thing a lot. The Blu-ray Pride and Joy is really just kind of like the highlights from one of the concerts where they brought together all these Alligator artists. They would put on these huge concerts, like 4 hours or more, and they would just play. This one was at Philadelphia's Chestnut Cabaret, and it's great. Not only do you hear great music, a lot of these guys I was not that familiar with. Kate Webster, Lonnie Blues, Coco Taylor and her Blues Machine. These are a couple of the folks that I really was not that familiar with that the movie introduced me to, but also you get a sense of how Iglauer founded the company, how he was able to succeed in business where a lot of people around him were failing, and it's great. I think it's just terrific. So this thing is called Pride and Joy, the story of Alligator Records. Also, we have on Blu-ray Racing Extinction. This thing is about how when I first heard this, I thought to myself, this Blu-ray is going to try to convince me that because of the horrible oil companies and the horrible gas companies and horrible corporations, half of the species on Earth will be extinct within our lifetime.
A week.
And you're like, oh, stop that, people. But then when it's done, you're like, oh my God, half of the species will be extinct in a week. Believe it.
We talked a little bit on Film Week about a new IMAX film, which gets a little bit into that as well. But yeah, it's like there was some study some years ago that said we are rapidly reaching a level where species are going to start becoming extinct like every week, and it's just like it becomes like a domino effect. And what I was thinking was, that's pretty great because it'll more room for us.
That's what I think.
That's what I felt like. Yeah. So
our friend William.
Yeah.
Remember, he used to have a thing where he wishes he could. He was a guy who wanted to literally pave the earth. Like he wanted the earth to be all concrete.
Okay, so just before I get into the final few titles here, yes, William loves concrete. This is someone I went to kindergarten with. He's a computer guy, a very successful programmer. So I went to kindergarten with him. He's quite a brain. And when he bought his first house, it was in a gated community. Which he's gonna kill me for telling this story, but it was in a gated community where they had landscaping standards, as they all do. We want a certain amount of greenery and flowers and grass, and we don't want to look like a great big cinder block campus. Of course, William hates plants because they have to be cared for, they have to be watered, It's maintenance that he doesn't want to have to do. He doesn't want to have to pay a gardener. He doesn't want somebody coming, and basically he wants a badminton court in his backyard. That's all he wants to do. He doesn't want to lie out on grass. He doesn't want to have flowers. He doesn't want to grow anything. He just wants to play badminton on the concrete. So, and he's good at badminton, by the way. It's like he could wipe out Olympic players. It's kind of scary. So anyway, he submitted plans to his homeowners association, of which he was treasurer, only so he could have the inside track. And he submitted plans over and over and over, and every single one came back, please show more plantings, please show more plantings, please show more plantings. So he went from like 98% concrete down to like 45% concrete when they finally approved it. And then he went with the first plan anyway. And then when they complained, he said, I submitted so many plans, I lost track of which one you approved. Sorry. And there was nothing they could do. What are they going to do, make him tear it up? So he wound up winning anyway. I mean, I remember that whole. I don't know why I'm even telling that story, but yes. Anyway, concrete.
Yes, and we
paved the world.
We used to go to his place and play Bomberman. He had that couch.
Bomberman.
He had that couch that sat like 8 people. It was so long it sat like 7 or 8 people.
Yeah.
And he projected his TV screen on his wall.
Yeah.
And this was like 10, 15 years ago, so it was pretty expensive and exotic to have a TV that projected on the wall. And we would play Bomberman.
Yeah. 5 people sit there. And
In fact, I was with him at the Claim Jumper restaurant when I found out that I'd been accepted to LAFCA.
Oh, there you go.
Because it was the voting meeting, and you were at the voting meeting, and of course I could not be there.
And I texted you.
And
I texted you your acceptance.
So I was with William and a couple of our other buddies at a Claim Jumper restaurant in wherever the hell town it was in.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, I was sitting at the Claim Jumper restaurant, and you texted me, and you said you're in.
There you go. All right, well, the last couple kind of go along what we were just talking about. In Defense of Food, an Eater's Manifesto. This is a Blu-ray from PBS, and it is based on the book In Defense of Food, and this is, again, it's kind of into that whole sustainability deal. And essentially, the whole issue is what will enable us to eat and be healthy and not completely deplete everything that the planet has to offer us. And it's interesting. It kind of covers the whole world, and it goes into all kinds of different lifestyles, religious and otherwise, and what people eat and what they don't eat, and what is and isn't nutritious, and what isn't organic, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a little bit exhaustive, but it's very informative, and you'll certainly come out of it feeling hungry, I think. And then the last one, Earth's Natural Wonders, Living on the Edge. This is from BBC Earth, also released on PBS on beautiful Blu-ray. And this is less apocalyptic. This is simply a wonderful journey through a lot of the wonderful parts of the Earth. A bit of a travelogue in that classic BBC PBS style. And it's very rewarding. It's 3 hours long, never even feels remotely that long. Beautiful. You just see animals and great sights and mountains and blue seas, and it is lovely. The Amazon never looked so gorgeous, even though you know that there are like 19-foot-long crickets that are just waiting to eat you somewhere underneath the water. So Earth's Natural Wonders, Living on the Edge, really, really pretty great, kind of amazing. So and the people who live in some of these places, it's amazing. Why don't they move? Don't you ever wonder that?
No. You do.
Like you live in the coldest or the hottest or the most far out there place on the planet, and you can't really do anything or get anywhere. You can't get cell reception. There's no cable. There's no satellite. You got some camels and some yaks. Move, man. If ever there were a reason to go find a new place.
I need to live in the middle of things. I cannot live in the country. I can't live on a farm. I need to live in a big city in the middle of stuff.
Yep, I hear you. You and Ava Gabor on Green Acres. There you go. That's what it is. All right, we are done, and we will see you guys next week.